In late 2025, EV sales in the US fell by half in a single quarter, not because the cars got worse, because the hype finally met the math. Just a few years ago, EVs were the hottest topic in the auto industry. Sales were exploding, new models were launching every month, and many people believed the transition would happen faster than anyone imagined. Automakers pledged billion-dollar factories. Governments set aggressive targets. Germany aimed for 15 million EVs on the road by 2030. The US projected that EVs would hit 67% of new car sales within the decade. Investors poured more than $200 billion into US EV manufacturing alone, betting the future had already arrived. But today, the conversation sounds very different. Tesla's global deliveries fell in 2025, including the final quarter of the year. BYD kept growing, but even China's blistering pace has cooled from where forecasters expected it to be. In the US, EV market share peaked at just 12% late last year, then slid the moment a key incentive disappeared. 2 or 3 years ago, industry projections put EVs at close to 50% of the US market by 2030. That number has been revised down repeatedly, first to 35%, then 25%, then 17%. That's not a marketing collapsing, that's a market correcting. Why buyers are becoming more cautious. Buying an EV is no longer an easy decision. Early adopters already bought in. They wanted the tech, they could afford the premium, and most of them had a garage to charge it. That group is largely served now. The buyers left on the sideline look different. They're less tolerant of trade-offs, more price-sensitive, and far more likely to ask questions before signing anything. Those questions are now about price, about charging, about resale value, and about long-term ownership. And those questions are slowing down the excitement. AAA's most recent consumer survey found only 18% of US adults said they were likely to buy an EV, down from 23% the year before. Nearly 2/3 said they were unlikely. The top reasons haven't changed in years: cost, inconvenient charging, and range anxiety. 3 in 10 respondents said they couldn't even install a home charger where they live. AAA's detector of automotive research put it plainly: the early adopters who wanted an EV already have one, and the people left are the ones weighing practicality against everything else. That last point about charging matters more than people realize. If you rent an apartment or park on the street, the entire EV value proposition changes. You're not just buying a car, you're buying a car that assumes a driveway and an outlet you may not have. Why automakers are changing their plans. Several manufacturers have delayed EV launches, adjusted production targets, or shifted more attention back towards hybrids. Not because EVs have failed, but because demand isn't growing as quickly as expected. Ford took a $19.5 billion pre-tax charge tied to its EV pullback and repurposed a newly built electric truck plant in Tennessee to build gas trucks instead, even renaming the factory. General Motors booked a charge of more than $7 billion on its own EV retreat. Volvo took a hit over $1 billion, citing tariffs, launch delays, and softer demand across Europe and the US, with its flagship electric SUV taking longer and costing more to develop than expected. Industry-wide analysts now estimate up to $100 billion in EV-related estimates may need to be written down globally, once you count the factories, equipment, and battery plants built for volumes that never materialized. 2 years ago, automakers were planning roughly 170 new EV models over the next 4 years. That number has been cut by more than half. None of this is being framed publicly as a retreat. Executives call it flexibility. One Hyundai plant manager described the strategy as building 6 different powertrains side by side: combustion, hybrid, plug-in, full electric, extended range, even hydrogen, so the company can shift output toward whatever customers actually want, month to month. Hyundai's own plant in Georgia was originally designed for 100% EV production. Executives now say the realistic mix is closer to 70% hybrid and 30% electric, a complete reversal from the original plan. Ford and its battery partner also dissolved a joint venture that was supposed to anchor Ford's EV battery strategy, laying off 1,600 workers at the plant tied to it. That's not the language of an industry abandoning electrification. It's the language of an industry admitting the timeline it promised investors was never realistic. And it's not confined to one company. Suppliers, dealers, and state governments that bet heavily on EV-driven job growth are now recalculating what those investments actually deliver and on what timeline. The price war nobody saw coming. One of the biggest changes has been aggressive price competition. Tesla, BYD, and other manufacturers have lowered prices, creating pressure across the entire EV market. Tesla has repeatedly cut prices on its lineup and rolled out cheaper trims to defend market share. Even as it prepares to discontinue its most premium models, BYD's Seagull sells for around $10,000 and still turns a profit for the company. That kind of pricing forces every competitor to either match it or lose ground, and most legacy automakers can't match it without losing money on every unit sold. Great for buyers, much tougher for automakers. Margins on EVs remain thinner than on gas or hybrid vehicles across most of the industry. Add in a price war and you get exactly what's happening now: shrinking profits on the very vehicles automakers spent billions building factories to produce, alongside factories now running well under capacity. Industry veterans call this stranded capital, equipment and buildings that exist, fully paid for, but aren't producing enough to justify the investment behind them. If you want to see where this actually lands, subscribe before we get into what's still holding EVs back, because that's where the real story is. The challenges EVs still need to solve. Today's EVs are better than ever. Range has improved, charging speeds have improved. Reliability data on newer models looks stronger than it did 5 years ago. But challenges remain around public charging affordability, apartment charging, and depreciation, issues that still influence many buying decisions. Public charging infrastructure is still inconsistent outside major metro areas, and rural buyers in particular still describe range anxiety as a rational concern rather than an irrational one. Entry-level EV prices, while falling, remain higher than many buyers want to pay, especially as the average new vehicle price has climbed to a point where roughly 1/3 of Americans are effectively priced out of buying new at all. Apartment and street parking households, a huge share of the population, still can't reliably charge at home, and that single limitation rules out a full EV for millions of otherwise interested buyers. Used EV depreciation has also been rougher than the industry hoped, driven largely by uncertainty around battery health and rapidly improving newer models, making older ones look outdated fast. None of these problems is permanent, but none of them are solved yet either, and that gap is exactly what's showing up in the sales numbers. It also explains why hybrids are quietly winning the moment. A hybrid gives buyers most of the efficiency gains of electrification without asking them to solve the charging problem first. That's not a knock on EVs, it's just a reminder that the fastest growing segment right now is the one with the most headlines. In the third quarter of 2025, hybrid sales share actually grew faster year over year than EV sales share did, even as EVs technically hit a new sales record. Two technologies moving in the same direction at very different speeds. Why the hype had to slow down? Every major technology goes through the same cycle. First comes excitement, then reality. Smartphones went through it. Hybrids went through it in the 2000s, when Toyota's Prius became a cultural symbol before the industry fully understood which hybrids actually worked and which didn't. Now EVs are going through the exact same cycle, just faster and more publicly. The EV industry is now entering that second phase, where real-world ownership matters more than bold promises. That shift shows up everywhere you look. Bosch, the world's largest auto supplier, wound down parts of its electric motor division in Charleston and shifted workers back toward fuel injection systems, retaining an entire team almost overnight. Toyota, long criticized for staying loyal to hybrids while rivals chase an all-electric future, is now increasing hybrid and plug-in hybrid production by roughly 30% by 2028, aiming for hybrids to make up around 60% of its total output. The company that looked out of step 5 years ago now looks like it read the room correctly, ending 2025 with roughly 10.5 million vehicles sold worldwide. What surprised me most? The biggest surprise isn't that EV growth has slowed in some markets. It's how quickly the conversation shifted from everyone is buying an EV to which EV is actually worth buying. That's a sign the market is maturing. A market chasing hype asks whether to buy in at all. A mature market asks which specific model, at which specific price point, fits which specific driver, and under which specific conditions it actually makes financial sense. That's a completely different conversation than the one the industry was having 5 years ago, and it's a healthier one even if it makes for less dramatic headlines. What also caught me off guard is how fast the industry itself absorbed the shift. Companies that built entire factories around one growth curve are now retooling, retraining workers, and rewriting 5-year plans within the space of a single year. That kind of speed usually only shows up after a crash, not a correction. It tells you the slowdown wasn't a minor blip. Automakers could shrug off. It was real enough that billion-dollar decisions got reversed almost overnight. Is this actually good for EV buyers? Less hype doesn't necessarily mean bad news. More competition is leading to better technology, lower prices, improved reliability, and more choices. And that's exactly what buyers have been waiting for. Battery costs keep falling. Charging speeds keep climbing, with some manufacturers now pushing systems capable of adding meaningful range in minutes rather than hours. Automakers that overbuilt EV capacity are now sitting on factories they need to fill, which means aggressive pricing and better deals for anyone shopping right now instead of waiting on the sideline. Even amid the pullback, most forecasters still expect EVs to land somewhere around 20 to 25% of the US market by 2030, a real number, just a far more grounded one than what was promised at the peak of the hype. The hype era rewarded whoever launched first and shouted the loudest. This next phase rewards whoever builds the best product at the right price for the right driver. For buyers, that's a much better position to be in than the one the industry was selling a few years ago. It also means the winners of this next stretch may be the companies everyone expected 2 years ago. Some automakers are already treating the slowdown as a gift, a chance to bank the cash they'd have burned chasing an overly aggressive timeline, and instead build toward a market that actually exists rather than the one that was projected on a slide deck. Others are still betting the original timeline was right, and the slowdown is temporary. Both bets can't be correct, and the next few years will decide which one was. The transition to electric vehicles isn't dead, it's just no longer running on hype. What's left is the harder, slower work of actually earning the sale. One buyer, one price point, and one real-world commute at a time. And that's a story worth watching closely from here. Drop your take in the comments and subscribe if you want to keep following where this goes next.